Hello, this is Phil Story, a network detective from Australia. In this video, number 2 in the series, we're going to look at NetData's dialog charts. And in the dialog chart, we look at client and server traffic. We get the big picture of what's happening. Just a little reminder of what NetData is, and that it's all about visualizing IT performance. And in using graphical charts to do things, we can get to the answer quicker. This is from the NetData Lite charting guide, which you would have got if you got NetData Lite from me. Today we're going to be looking at this chart. This is from my Hints and Tips document that I created. What we're going to be interested in is right-clicking, hovering the cursor, using Alt-Z, Alt-X and Alt-Y. Before we get into NetData itself, I'll just show you, this is from a Megalodon challenge. There was a load generator that's sending traffic into a web application server, and in turn the web application server had back-end traffic to a content server, and the packet capture was done at the web application server. What that looks like in a dialog chart is we see all the clients, or all the devices that act as clients, appear on the left, all the devices that act as servers appear on the right, and in this case we can see the load generator traffic coming into the 1.1 machine in the front end, and so the 1.1 machine is a server for that traffic, but down in the bottom right, 1.1 is also a client in talking to these other servers, primarily this 10.1, which is the back end, presumably a database server. In terms of hovering, if we were to look at this dialog chart and hover on the lines, we would get these pop-ups, and here we can see you get a big picture of what's going on. In this case, there were lots of traffic. There was 2.6 million packets in this capture, but there's lots of packet losses. You can see there, loss beyond monitor, data retransmissions, selective acts, and down here 10,000 gaps, 4,000 retransmissions, 2,800 selective acts. So by hovering on these bars on the dialog chart, we get a sort of a big picture view of what's happening on these or between these two endpoints. So let's have a look at real life NetData Lite. The PCAP file I'm going to use is this one that came from PacketBomb. He had a slow web server blog, and what we do is just drop that PCAP on our NetData Lite icon, and here goes NetData Lite. Now it's off doing its thing, decoding, building databases. So while it's doing that, we'll just talk about the front page here. This is the chart we're interested in today. Future videos we'll look at these other charts, but essentially these buttons are to the charts in the order in which you would generally do an analysis. There we are, the analysis is finished. We get now this pop-up. Rather than just drawing everything for us, this time, because it's a bigger packet capture, NetData has said, okay, I'm ready to show you dialogues if you like. You could check all of these, tick them all off, and NetData will just draw them all for you. But in this case, we only want to look at dialog charts for this video, so I'll just say chart, and here's the dialog chart. So in this case we see there's just one client, and that one client is doing port 80 HTTP to all of these different servers. And as I said before, the first thing we'd probably want to do is look at the colors, and in this case these are packet retransmission rates. Very tiny numbers though, but this one here jumps out and this one here jumps out. If I hover on them, and I can do an Alt-Z, we'll lock that on, and we can find out what's going on here. So what's interesting is there's one data retransmission, so not really many retransmissions. Minimum setup time of sub-millisecond, so that's of interest. So let's have a look at this lighter blue one, and while we're here I'll just demonstrate. Alt-X will make the pop-up go left and right, Alt-Y will make it go up and down, X, Y, X, and then Alt-Z will lock it on. And again we can see, oh, tiny round trip times. So that's unusual. This we can't be really connecting to these endpoints. So Alt-R will get rid of all the pop-ups, and we say look at another one. This is the one with the biggest traffic. So thickness of the line represents the volume, and then color represents the various, well in this case packet retransmission. So we can make, with the highlight button, we can make the colors represent something else. Just, you can have a look at those. So some other aspects of this chart. The name, if NetData found a name of a device related to an IP address, it would put it there. But if there's no name, uses these in parentheses to tell us that it's got this from the MAC address. So what we can do here in the options button, options, I can come down here and plot round trip times for data and setup. Now we get the same kind of data. We still get pop-ups on here, and in this case, so what we can tell down here is that there was a different MAC address for the traffic in each direction to that server. And if we hover on another one and pop that up, we see in fact it's the same. So we're always going out one way and coming back another way on the local network. Alt-R. But the key information here is that all of these web servers that we're talking to, they're only a tiny amount of time away. That's half a millisecond on this scale down the bottom. And these particular ones, this might be interesting in some cases, the connection setup time on that one was 3 milliseconds, whereas the measured round trip time for data was only 0.7. So there's obviously something in that server that was different. Options. So to go back to the normal non-round trip times, we do this. And also notice that by default these things are ticked, so we're not seeing these multicasts and ARPs and things that would just basically make the dialog chart ugly. So let's just step through what we can do on this chart by buttons. If you hover on a button, it'll give you a little hint about what it does. Order, we can order by different things. So for instance, if we want to order by IP address, there we go. But typically we order by this. We let NetData choose the order. Options, whole bunch of options in there. And highlight, we've had a look at. The way I'd use this is if we discovered that loss beyond monitor was a big deal in this particular capture, then in the report I might select loss beyond monitor, and here we get packet transit loss rate, and it just gives us a bit more colors to put in our report. But in this case, data retransmission is, well, actually it's the most interesting. All charts tend to have a copy and a save button. Copy, will just put that on the clipboard, so that's now in the clipboard, and I could paste it into my report. Save will just save the image into an image file, and with NetData Lite it'll put it into the folder that you've got the NetData Lite executable. So another thing to notice, dialogues, services, clients, types and nodes are buttons that will just give us tables. So notice that it's saying we're only currently viewing 79 out of 135 dialogues. If we press the dialogues button, then we'll get a dialogues table. And the dialogues table looks like that. And so all of them are in there. And typically of a NetData table view, there's a columns button, and we can turn on or turn off columns if we want to. I'll turn them all on. We've got a copy, same as before. Export will export a CSV file of this table, and we can do things like double click that to get the right width. If we can click, green means it's sorted in increasing order, purple in decreasing order, and in this case we can tell that this particular dialog, that client to that server, had the most server traffic and the most frames. So what we could do while we're in a table, we can right click, remember right click on everything, see what you get, and what we can do is say focus server, and now we'll get rid of that. The focus server is green on the chart here. So that's primarily the dialog chart. There are a couple of extra buttons here that we should mention. The chart menu is where we can select what do we want to do when we look at the performance chart generator from here. So at the moment those two are checked, but another thing we can do is time range here, time range, and here we can also choose what do we want to select. I usually have connections, connection setups, transactions, and I usually want to see network events. And now, so that's set up what we want, and that's the same as doing those things in this menu. So just for fun, let's pick this one here. We can say right click, focus that server. We don't necessarily need to focus. Right click, chart records of this service versus server is either one port or all ports. And here we are, we've popped up the connections table, events and warnings, and the performance chart. So that's just a teaser for the next video. So I hope that's given you enough information to get started with the dialogue chart. Stay tuned for the next video and we'll delve into the performance chart.